So you're bad at Yu-Gi-Oh. Terrible. Don't even know how to draw a card. Is your best skill just shuffling your graveyard or shuffling your hand incessantly because of a tick you developed? Because of overall Stockholm Syndrome you have to this game thanks to an anime that aired 20 years ago? You've come to the right place. Do you find yourself saying excuses such as, well, man, if I had just had 500 more damage and I'd been able to finish off my opponent, he wouldn't have gone, and then he wouldn't have drawn his card and then summoned his guy, and then I had no interruptions, and then he beat me, and it's just like crazy because he had an insert card here, right? So if you catch yourself saying and doing these things, you've come to the right place. So how do you start getting better at Yu-Gi-Oh? What a question. How do you go about answering something like this? The only way I can answer that is with a story of how I got better at Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, who am I? I'm not one of those guys who's dunking on people in tournaments. But I do have some success. I'll post it here. Recent success. I'm a family man. I got wife and kids, right? So I don't really get a chance to go to a lot of tournaments. I'm lucky to go to a tournament every few months. A bigger one like regional or YCS. In terms of locals, I go consistently enough, and the results are fairly consistent. If you input these habits, these are habits that the pro players input, you will see your game significantly improve. And so what we'll do is we'll start at the beginner level, go to intermediate, and advanced. In the description below, there'll be a description or the pinned comment, whatever's more convenient. I'm going to put time cards so you can skip ahead to whatever section pertains to you. If you believe you're an intermediate player, an advanced player, you can just skip to that straight up. You don't have to watch the beginners or intermediates because those might be more boring parts of the video for you. But there's obviously really good content in all three sections, and it'll help anybody that's trying to improve in the game. So let's start at the beginner level. In the beginner stage, you're a total Yu-Gi-Oh noob. You don't know what you're doing, right? What's the best way to learn to play Yu-Gi-Oh? So many Yu-Gi-Oh players don't understand simple things such as they can't activate Grand Horn of Heaven on a summon off of a spell card, trap card, or monster effect. They believe that you can just Grand Horn of Heaven that. It's not an inherent summon. If you don't know what that means, if you don't understand that MST does not negate Mirror Force, you need to download EDOpro. EDOpro is a solid simulator. In EDOpro, we'll pop it up right here. In EDOpro, you cannot activate cards legally if the simulator doesn't like. So you will not be allowed to activate a card that doesn't meet its activation requirement. You have the one normal summon. It will not let you make illegal actions. You will make misplays, but not illegal actions. And that's what you need. You need a guiding hand, training wheels to corral you, kind of like an Oklahoma drill in football. You're just going down this path, right? And that's what EDOpro does for you. And so download EDOpro. The way you download it, I'll post it on screen right here. Just go on Google, search EDOpro. It'll come up. There's videos. There's plenty of people have done it. I don't need to do it here. You can go to the Discord, get it there. You can get any card for free in the simulator. You can play any deck. You can play the most expensive meta deck. You just look up a list and pop it in there, and you can play that. Or you can just play Dark Magician. Whatever. The world is your oyster. Now, the online play can be a little toxic, right? If you go to the servers, sometimes the players just want to FTK you and leave. If they lose the coin flip or whatever, they're gonna just scoop, right, and bounce. Doesn't teach you anything, but there's a solid AI option where the AI is kind of dumb, but it knows how to execute the decks that it was programmed to execute. So you have decks such as like old school Horus, way back in the day, like Horus level monsters, not the new Horus stuff, and then you have Tier Laments, right? Oh, and a wide chasm in between, right? You have Kashtira, you have Sword Soul, you have so many different options to test against. You have ABC Dragon Buster. So if you want to go against a really good combo deck, you can play that. If you want to go against a really good mid-range deck like Sword Soul, you can to test your deck, right? You have so many different options, and it'll help you learn without the pressure of someone playing against you, right? So you can make mistakes, and you don't have to worry about anything. You just scoop up your cards, go to the next game, and you're good. Once you're comfortable playing against AI, once you're comfortable playing your deck, you can then move on, play in the servers, play against live opponents. But I would highly encourage you to get EDOpro and play against AI to start off. Once you're kind of understanding the game a little bit, right? And please look up YouTube combos, look up YouTube videos. People will show you how to play certain decks, things that you're not seeing to maximize lines. There's other options you can do. You can do Master Duel. You can do Dueling book. Master Duel I would not suggest, because if you haven't had any experience in the game, you're gonna build a bad deck. You're gonna use up all your gems, and then to get a good deck, you're gonna have to grind or to pay, which no one wants to do that, right? So leave Master Duel until you're comfortable with the game. Dueling book I wouldn't do also. We'll get into that later, why and when I would advise people to go on Dueling book. Once you have EDOpro downloaded and you're in the game, you want to find a deck, right? The way you find decks that are interesting is just by testing different decks, right? The way you do that is go on my YouTube channel, go on other YouTube channels, find decks that you find interesting. I have some branded content on here. I have a budget branded list. I have a top end branded list. I have some Unchained stuff. So if you are interested in that, you can see in my other videos. I can pin them here and here. And if you want to see if you want to try other decks, you can. There's a million YuGiTubers out here that will that have posted deck profiles, and so just search stuff up. World is your oyster. You can play anything. If you don't want to play a deck, you just delete it. It's all free. It's all good to go. Now that you're in the game, you're playing consistently. You're starting to develop the necessary skills to deck build, analyze cards, and make judgment calls in deck building and in game. Once you've figured out the deck you want to play, the next step is what? To get the cards, right? You want to play paper Yu-Gi-Oh! The ultimate goal is to go to tournaments, locals, regionals, YCSs, and play well and hopefully do well, right? This is a competitive-based video discussion, right? Or actually a video advice video, I guess. Once you figured out the deck you want to run, you want to find a good outlet for these cards at the cheapest prices. And in my experience, I think it's tcgplayer. tcgplayer is really good because you can get very cheap common cards for very, very cheap prices. Like they're like 9, 10, 11 cents, like super cheap. So you can find very, very budget option decks where like sites like eBay and other sites, commons end up being too expensive. I've also found that the competition on tcgplayer is the highest, so you'll get the lowest prices overall. And I'm not sponsored. Please, tcgplayer, sponsor me. I'm on the come up. But you're now a full-fledged duelist. What's the next step? Now we go to the intermediate level, right? That was beginner, total noob, doesn't know what they're doing. Intermediate step. You want to go to locals. On YuGiOh.com, you can find OTS stores that hold local tournaments every week consistently. Some hold it multiple times a week, and a lot of them are in your area. You can hit up one, then another, all in the same week. You can play 3-4 tournaments a week. Eventually, through this constant exposure, you're going to get very good. But at first, you will get clapped. You'll get clapped and clapped and clapped again. But eventually, you'll break through. It's kind of like Dark Souls. Get good, and you will. Do not get discouraged, though, because the worst attitude in any game is a quitting mentality. Oh, I'm not good immediately at it. If you were good immediately at something, why would you want to do that? That means it's an easy game and there's no skill involved. It's basically slot machines. Yu-Gi-Oh has some of that in its gameplay, but overall, it's very skill-based. Go to your local stores, get cooked, get better, right? Your builds will not be optimal. Your builds will be kind of mid. You'll run 3 Mirror Force for no reason, which even though that card hasn't been ran consistently in like 10 years, at least, at the very least, probably not even that much. So locals, that's the next step you want to do. At this stage, some players never make it out of this stage where they're just consistently going to locals, getting 2 and 2 and no pricing, right? You're basically donating $5 every week. But if your goal is to just get some gameplay in, and then, meet people, trade cards, then that's a fine thing to do. But if you want to keep improving, you want to hop now on duelingbook.com. And so duelingbook.com is a great option for players that are trying to get a lot of really good competitive games in a real quick, short amount of time. So on DB, for the initiated, you'll start out, you'll play some pretty bad opponents. But once you start winning, your rating will go up. Once your rating goes up, you're going to play better opponents. It's a curved difficulty curve, right? Right, slowly, like as you get better, you're always playing better opponents. So overall, the game never becomes hella easy, which is very, very important to improving your overall game. This will single-handedly raise your skill level the most out of all this stuff, right? EDOpro will teach you just how to activate cards and not look like an idiot, but Dueling Book will actually make you feel like you're a true duelist. The next step as an intermediate player is to improve at side decking. Most low, intermediate, and beginner players and nonchalant players, they just take side decking for granted. They don't care. They're like, whatever, I'll just throw some cards in, blah, blah, blah. Side decking is one of the single most important things that you can do, because most games are played post-side. I know you heard the cliche. You've probably heard the cliche before. If you get 2-0'd every game, that means you're only playing 2 games each match, right? If you get 2-0'd, you're still playing 50% of your games post-side. If you go to game 3, you're playing 66% of your games post-side. 66.66, repeating, right? So you want to get better at side decking, right? I'll go through a anecdotal story for myself. Unchained, right? That's what I played, and this last format. And Unchained has a very bad Flunderies matchup. Flunderies is a tribute summon deck for the uninitiated. Basically, it dunks on monsters that are in attack mode and special summoned, which is what Unchained does. It special summons link monsters, meaning link monsters are in attack mode. And Flunderies just hard counters that. To give myself a fighting chance in the matchup, I knew about this matchup, so I was like, okay, I have to prepare for that, right? You get 15 cards in the side deck. I decided to dedicate 3 cards to Spellbound in a recent tournament. The Spellbound, theoretically, in theory, is a great card. Against Flunderies, it's great. Against Purely, which is a decent contender, it's great. The problem is it's a wide open format. In a wide open format, you've got 30, 40, 50 decks running around that you can play against Volcanics, right? And I've never played against Volcanics. I don't even know what the hell they would be doing, right? Because it's not on the radar. I know they burn, right? But anyway, just because it covers 2 decks in a 30-deck format doesn't mean you should run it, even if it's for such a bad matchup for yourself. Some players in an open format like this just accept a loss. They just go, okay, that deck I'll just lose to, because it's a deck I'll see 0.5% of the time, meaning maybe 1 out of 100, 1 out of 200 matches will be Flunderies, right? So, and then Purely's like 1 out of like 20, 1 out of 10, right? You're not going to see it that often. Now, for something that takes up, 5-6% of all the games you're going to play overall matches, you want to dedicate 20% of your side deck for it? That's nonsense, right? And that's what I did. So once you catch yourself doing this, you can introspectively reevaluate and be ruthless with your card choices for your side deck, right? And so once you realize that you're already running Droll and Lockbird, which I was, for combo decks, because combo decks, if you don't have Droll, you just auto lose to them. Flunderies and Purely both somewhat lose to those cards, right? Is it as bad as Spellbound? No, but you're already running Droll. You're sort of covered. And now if you can find another card that somewhat covers that matchup, but also covers another 10 matchups, or 5, whatever, that's a much better investment of your side deck. The key takeaway is be ruthless when side decking, when selecting choices for your side deck. It's one of the most important things. It's as important as your deck building, right? A lot of people focus a lot on their deck building, but they don't focus on the actual theory of side decking. So now, you're good at side decking, you're good at playing, you might have actually topped some locals, right? You're consistently playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're getting good at the game. You're able to improve your technical gameplay to the point where you're actually seeing decent success. I want to say congrats. Now let's go further beyond that. Now we're in the advanced tips. Now for the really juicy fun part. This is for players that have reached a really high skill level in Yu-Gi-Oh! They want to take any little advantage and squeeze out any little percentage of win rate that they can. And so we'll start off with one of my favorite resources, which is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Probability Calculator. So I'll pop it up right here. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Probability Calculator is amazing. It allows you to input your deck count, your hand size, 5 for going first, 6 for going second, or whatever. And then you can see what are your chances of drawing certain cards in your deck, right? So you can input, like you want to see how often you draw your starter in your deck, right? So for my branded build, I'll have 45 cards, and then in a 5-card hand, and I have like 14 starters, the odds of me drawing it is like 86% going first, like 90% going second. And then I run 10 going second cards. right? So if I want to see possibly in my hand, like what are the chances that I open up a starter? Okay, cool. That's pretty good. If I need it to be 85 to 90%, I'm there. I've met that criteria. Then I can go, what are my chances of opening up and going second card? Oh, this is the percentage here. And then what is the percentage of opening up both, at the same time going second in a 6-card hand? You can find out all of these things. And all of these percentages are very important. It helps you make smart decisions as opposed to feeling-based decisions. You cannot play Yu-Gi-Oh with feeling where you're like, I really like this card, so I'm going to run it at 3 because it looks cool or whatever. If you can search it, is it optimal? Does it need to be at 3? Can you run at 1, right? This calculator will allow you to make these cold, ruthless decisions because you'll know the math supports you. You'll win because of math. Now, I know that's not fun. It's not Heart of the Cards or whatever, but Heart of the Cards is kind of trash, right? It's cool. It's cool for the show. It's cool for drama. But only one deck has Heart of the Cards, and that's Dark Magician, right? With Soul Servant. So you need the calculator to be able to make your deck the most mathematically consistent deck possible so that you remove all the variables out of gameplay, such as brick factor and whatnot, so that you lose exclusively because of your skill, your misplays, or your opponent's skill. And if maybe they have a better tier deck, then that also can be a factor. But overall, you want to remove as many factors that are in your control out of the equation, right? So if you lose because of something that happened outside of your control, you can swallow them and be like, okay, moving on. Yeah, I lost, so what? But if you lose because of something in your control, such as deck building, then you have to improve that. And that's how you improve. These type of habits are what's going to make you a better player. The next resource I love is YuGiOh Scope. YuGiOh Scope takes all the metadata off of Dueling Book and shows you what decks are the most popular, what decks have the best win percentage, what cards are the most popular, and what cards have the best win percentage and worst percentage, all that stuff. It's very important to be able to use this resource so that you can figure out what decks are, top decks in the current game, what decks are performing the best, and if you want to pick up maybe a dark horse, you can find them here, where there'll be a deck that a lot of people don't know that has such a high win percentage. For example, we'll go back to Flundereeze. Last format, Flundereeze had an incredibly high win percentage, but it wasn't highly played. It was like, the count on YuGiOh Scope was maybe like 200-300 plays in the format, but it had like 59-60% win percentage, which was higher than most of the meta decks, showing that Flundereeze is absolutely insane. It's just not played because probably a lack of interest in the archetype or a lack of popularity. But if you're a budget player, Flundereeze is very cheap, so you can pick up Flundereeze and do very well, and that's where YuGiOh Scope comes in. The next advanced tip that I can offer is more of a feeling than it is cold hard. Here's a website. This is what it does. Learn to analyze your losses. This is probably one of the most important tips. What does that mean? It means quit blaming the deck or a brick or your opponent sacking you. Yes, those things happen, but that's simply the game. Those are variables out of your control, as we've discussed. You want to analyze your loss, and now if you lost because your deck bricked, right? Okay, you lost one game. Did you lose the match because you bricked? Highly doubtful. If you did you go 2-2 in locals because you bricked that often? That seems like a deck building issue, right? So instead of it being like, man, I bricked so I lost, no. Maybe you go home, use the Yu-Gi-Oh calculator, and figure out what the hell is in your deck that's causing you to brick, and then be more judicious with figuring out what cards to cut and what cards to include. You can't just build a deck off feeling. It has to be mathematically correct. And so you didn't lose that tournament because you bricked. You lost that tournament before you even showed up because of your poor deck building choices. Now, if your opponent drew a 1-of and sacked you, okay, they got you in that game. Did they win the match because of that sack? And then you lose that match, but did you lose another match or another match or another match because you got sacked? Highly doubtful. Once again, these are variables that are out of your control. If you're playing this game, you're playing this game for the skill interactions. You want to be in control of your destiny. Someone that blames everything other than themselves is someone that's set up for misery. You know, why would you play a game that you believe everything out of your control is the reason you lost? Then why would you even play that? That's nonsense. It's a definition of insanity. It's simply passing the blame to the wrong aspects of this game. And if your deck is the problem, if it's bricky or the deck's just failing you, find another deck. You might not be good with this deck. Did you not misplay at all? If you don't misplay, if you are technically a master of your deck and you understand the matchup, right? A lot of people take matchup knowledge for granted. So you knew your opponent's match. You know your opponent's deck. You know the matchup. You know the interactions. You know your deck, and you still lose consistently. It means your deck is bad, and you need to get another deck. Sometimes that is what happens, right? Konami is a company for money. They print new cards. New cards are better than old cards. It's just how it is. Sad fact of life, but it is, right? Without that, the company would die, and then we wouldn't even have this game, right? So it's definitely the lesser of two evils. And luckily for you, if you need another deck, Konami has literally, I think it's like infinite archetypes at this point. And in fact, in this open format, you can choose probably 50 different archetypes that once you master, you can see very, very high levels of success with. At the end of the day, you can blame the deck or blame yourself. I choose to blame myself, because even if the deck is at fault, who picked that deck? Simple. Simple as that, baby. At the end of the day, there's a reason the same guys win YCSs and regionals and locals every time. It's because they incorporate most of these values to their own game, and these habits add up. The last thing I'll leave you with is a tip about consistency. There's a Bruce Lee quote that goes like this: I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. If you're not understanding what that means, here's another quote, a little more on the nose by me. Stick to your deck choice and master it, because the man who deck hops will win not. Thank you guys for tuning into my video. I hope that this helped people of all levels in this game. If you're a beginner, put it in the comments what brought you to the game, what deck you're trying to run, and if any of these tips helped, if you're intermediate, advanced, all that stuff, if I helped any of you guys, comment down below what you didn't know and what is something that's been brought to your attention that will help you. Thanks for tuning in. Please give a like to the video if it brought you any value whatsoever, and subscribe to the channel, because I'm about to be pumping out more of these videos like this, and all sorts of stuff. Just great Yu-Gi-Oh content, and great thing to kill on your drive to work and wherever. So once again, thank you all. Thank you all for the support. Thank you for the watch, and I'll see you guys again in the next one. Bye bye.